This is Pro Football Perspective. I am Nathaniel Bradley. Whether you're at home, work, the gym, in your car, or wherever you are, thanks for taking time out of your day to spend here. Pro Football Perspective is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, and YouTube. And of course, be sure to follow on Instagram at Pro Football Perspective. What's happening? Pro Football Perspective is back, so gather round, turn the volume up, and let's get to it. There is a lot to cover and very little time to cover it. We are almost done with the GOAT Group quarterback evaluation. There are 16 quarterbacks that we have been looking at over the past couple of months. The regular season is upon us. It's breathing down our necks. We will complete this evaluation and give you our GOAT Group crown, which will go to the true GOAT. That's going to be out of 16 quarterbacks that I feel have some sort of claim to being the GOAT. Those 16 quarterbacks in alphabetical order are Sammy Baugh, Terry Bradshaw, Tom Brady, Drew Brees, John Elway, Brett Favre, Otto Graham, Peyton Manning, Dan Marino, Joe Montana, Aaron Rodgers, Bart Starr, Roger Staubach, Johnny Unitas, Kurt Warner, and Steve Young. All 16 of those quarterbacks, absolute legends in their own right, and all 16 have some type of, like I said, a claim to being the GOAT. Fans for or haters against will have plenty to say about each individual quarterback. There is, of course, a couple of them that do still play, and they are gearing up for week one here. That's Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers, of course. The rest of these quarterbacks have completed resumes. I say completed because Brady and Rodgers are still playing, and they have more that they could add to their resumes. Some things could change a lot, especially if one of them were to win the Super Bowl. But a lot of their statistical results throughout their careers won't really have the needle moved all that much for one season. Rodgers could play a number of years. I guess Brady could play a number of years longer too. So who knows? We'll revisit next offseason and see if things have changed and they've kind of improved or maybe fallen down the rankings. Who knows? But I opened up these GOAT Group quarterback evaluations with a specific metric that essentially measures the era-adjusted production of each of these quarterbacks. It's essentially kind of leveling the playing field as the modern era of football today. Quarterbacks just flat out put up much higher counting stats. They throw the ball more. They throw it with more accuracy. Their receivers catch and run better than they used to. There are just a lot of factors that kind of inflate the statistical output of quarterbacks in this day and age. That's probably why it seems like every year when the draft comes along, there's prognosticators and talking heads that somehow think there's 3 or 4 Hall of Fame quarterbacks about to enter the league, which is absolutely nuts and outrageous. It's just crazy to think. But, they put up these eye-popping counting stats, and so that's kind of the reaction that you get year in and year out. Why I measured era-adjusted individual production is to essentially just measure how did each quarterback perform compared to their peers during that time. When we finished that evaluation, we saw Otto Graham at the top, okay, because he played in a time, where there may not have been the same level of productivity from quarterbacks, but he outproduced those that he played alongside. And so during that evaluation, there were several instances where I felt there was maybe some aspects of quarterbacks' games that weren't necessarily being taken into consideration completely. And I mentioned it several times that a mobile quarterback was a lot of times penalized for that statistical evaluation of sacks and their sack percentages. So that's something I wanted to take a look at. I thought in the back of my head, hey, is there anything to the idea that, some quarterbacks just flat out are like the kings of 1 yard touchdown passes? I'm looking at Manning and Breeze maybe on that, and that's just my own personal bias. In my head, I feel like I watched them throw 1 yard TD passes over and over again every week, versus bombing it necessarily down the field every time. I thought, hey, were there quarterbacks that were hyper efficient? Maybe when it comes to getting the ball in the end zone because of a running game necessarily. I don't know. But I wanted to take a look at how did quarterback play change the game or impact the game outside of the statistics and categories that were taken into account with my first evaluation. Those all focused on passing. And some of what I'll take a look at on this episode will focus on passing as well. We're going to look at game-changing ability. Again, I remind everybody to follow along on Instagram at Pro Football Perspective. Measuring game-changing ability is tricky. I am open to suggestions, corrections, commentary, you name it. But here's what I'm going to look at, and I think I've got a good grasp of kind of how this is going to shape our perspective of which quarterbacks could make the impact, momentum swinging, game changing plays. We're going to look at 30+ yard touchdown percentage, go ahead touchdown percentage, game tying touchdown percentage. We're going to look at rushing yards per carry. We're going to look at points per carry. And we're also going to look at fumbles per game. Each of those 6 categories, I think, impacts the game so immensely, yet it isn't really accounted for in my initial metric of individual production. What is it going to mean, each one? How am I actually measuring that? So when I say 30-yard touchdown percentage, I'm talking about the total number of 30+ yard touchdown passes a player has during their career divided by the total number of career pass attempts. Okay, so out of all the passes a quarterback threw in their entire career, what percentage of those were 30+ yard TDs? Okay, go ahead touchdown percentage, same thing. Out of all the career pass attempts that a player has during their career, what percentage of those were go ahead touchdown passes? Game tying TDs, same thing. Out of all the career pass attempts, what percentage were game-tying touchdown passes? Average yards per carry, that's pretty straightforward. I just want to know how many yards per carry each quarterback had during their career. That's going to really kind of shine for some of the mobile quarterbacks, okay? Points per carry. Now, this doesn't necessarily favor a mobile quarterback, okay? Quarterback sneaks at the 1 yard line carry a lot of points per carry. So that's something that has a ton of value in game-changing ability too, because you are taking advantage of a defense that has to respect your arm. Maybe you spread them out. Maybe they're even expecting it, and you're still just so efficient in getting into the end zone on a quarterback sneak. It also could easily be a 20-yard scramble for a touchdown. But either way, points per carry is huge. And then the negative category of average fumbles per game, that's something that I will take into account by subtracting, kind of taking points away from one of these GOAT group quarterbacks in terms of this evaluation. Fumbles per game is something I wanted to look at because, yes, there are mobile quarterbacks. They don't necessarily fumble the most. They might. Then there's, the statuesque stationary quarterbacks like Peyton Manning or Tom Brady in the pocket. Do they fumble as often? They tend to have lower sack percentages, so maybe they're just getting rid of the ball. I don't know. And then our old friend Kurt Warner. I've been a big Kurt Warner fan, and I've been lobbying for his place within the GOAT group here, but that's going to be a category where his fumbling issues are going to come to light. And so we're going to take a look at all of that. Okay, and you add all of that up, and of course, subtract the fumbles per game category. We're looking at how far above or below the average of these 16 quarterbacks they score within each category. Okay, and that's going to give you the overall game-changing ability score. Again, this is on Instagram at Pro Football Perspective. The explanation for each category and how it's scored, as well as the formula for determining the overall score for game-changing ability. So follow along there. Again, that's at Pro Football Perspective on Instagram. And away we go. Coming in at number 16 in game-changing plays among the GOAT group is Kurt Warner himself. Now, Kurt Warner, as you might imagine, scored dead last in fumbles per game. That was his lowest category among the GOAT group. Points per carry also was last for Kurt Warner. He wasn't running the ball in for any touchdowns. Yards per carry, pretty low as well. That was tied for 11th. 30-plus yard touchdown percentage. I was surprised here. That's 15th among the GOAT group. And then go-ahead touchdown percentage, also 15th among the GOAT group. So 15 out of 16 there. Again, that's not saying he's got a low percentage compared to the NFL and history, but just compared to the GOAT group here. And then game-tying touchdown percentage, he was 5th there. But overall, Kurt Warner coming in at number 16. Now, number 15 in game-changing plays was Sammy Baugh. Now, Sammy Baugh has some interesting figures here. 30-plus yard touchdown percentage. He was 2nd out of all 16 GOAT group quarterbacks here. Go-ahead touchdown percentage, he was 6th. Game-tying touchdown percentage, he was 1st. Okay, now caveat here, this is me doing a little bit of reading between the lines. There was very little if any, accurate field goal kicking during the time that Sammy Baugh was playing. So we are talking about games decided primarily by just scoring touchdowns. That's it. So game-tying touchdown percentage for him was higher. I'm not saying it's 100% because of the fact that there was very, very few field goals being made, but that might factor into some of it. Fumbles per game, he was 13th. Points per carry, 15th. Yards per carry, 15th. So that sums up Sammy Baugh, 15th in game-changing plays. Coming in at number 14, Dan Marino. So Dan Marino's game-changing play here, he had a couple of low categories. Yards per carry for his career was 0.3. That's 0.3 yards per carry. That's last among the GOAT group. Pretty stationary quarterback back there. Points per carry, 11th. Fumbles per game, he was 10th. Game-tying touchdown percentage, he was 2nd. So, Marino tying the game up, throwing the ball, happened on a pretty high clip. 30-plus yard touchdown percentage, he was 11th, and go-ahead touchdown percentage, he was 14th. And again, Dan Marino coming in at 14th overall in game-changing plays. Now, number 13 in game-changing plays is Tom Brady. So Tom Brady's play, impacting the game, momentum changers. Again, there's a caveat to be made here. Tom Brady absolutely changes the game with a dozen plays every game, but we have already covered those effectively, primarily through the individual production measurement that we took earlier this season, and this does focus on different categories that weren't covered there. Okay, so bear that in mind. Some of these, are just, it's looking at different output. So Tom Brady coming in at number 13, 30-plus yard touchdown percentage, he was 14th out of 16. Go-ahead touchdown percentage, he was 10th. Game-tying touchdown percentage, he was 11th. Yards per carry, 11th. Points per carry, 13th. And fumbles per game, 7. That's kind of surprising. I would have figured he would be almost at the top, but he's just kind of mid-range there. Still, I mean, he averages less than a half of a fumble per game during his entire career. So that's Tom Brady coming in at number 13. On to number 12 in terms of game-changing plays is Brett Favre. So Brett Favre comes in with a 30-plus yard touchdown percentage of just 0.99% during his career. That's 16th out of the 16 quarterbacks in the GOAT group. I would have thought he would have ranked higher. But again, this is all about kind of reshaping your perspective. Brett Favre in go-ahead touchdown percentage, he was 12th out of 16. Game-time touchdown percentage, he was 15th out of 16. Yards per carry, he was 9th. Points per carry, he was 14th. And fumbles per game, he was 14th. So poor Brett Favre, I'm sure he had the highest interception percentage. I'd have to go back and double check, but fumbles per game and interception percentage, he just turned the ball over more often than the other GOAT group quarterbacks. That's Brett Favre coming in at number 12 in game-changing plays. Peyton Manning comes in at number 11. 30-plus yard touchdown percentage, he was 9th. Go-ahead touchdown percentage, he was 8th. Game-time touchdown percentage, he was 10th. All pretty much in the same kind of ranking category there. Yards per carry, he was tied for 13th. Points per carry, he was 10th, a little bit of a step up there. And then fumbles per game, he was number 2. And that's, again, this is kind of the inverse, meaning that he's second best in that category, or second fewest fumbles per game at just 0.28. So just over one fumble every 4 games for Peyton Manning. And I want to mention here, again, I'm not sure I covered this earlier, fumbles per game, this is just that, fumbles per game. It's not fumbles lost, okay? Because sometimes a quarterback can fumble it and they fall on it, or an offensive lineman falls on it. That's still a heck of a negative play, because you're losing yardage. It's a waste of a down. If it's third down, okay, now you punt the ball. So yeah, this is fumbles per game. This is not fumbles lost per game. This is all of the fumbles, anytime the ball hit the ground, whether your team recovered it or not. So just wanted to throw that in there. Again, that's Peyton Manning coming in at number 11 in game-changing plays. On to number 10 in game-changing plays, we have Drew Brees. 30-plus yard touchdown percentage, he was 13th. Go-ahead touchdown percentage, he was 9th. Game-time touchdown percentage, he was 8th. Yards per carry, he was tied for 13th. Points per carry, he was 5th. That's kind of surprising there. And fumbles per game, he ranked 4th. That's Drew Brees coming in at number 10 in game-changing plays. Coming in at number 9 is Johnny Unitas. So Unitas was number 3 in 30-plus yard touchdown percentage. Number 1 in go-ahead touchdown percentage. So taking the lead by his arm at a higher clip than any of the other 16 quarterbacks in the or other 15 quarterbacks in the GOAT group. Game time touchdown percentage, he was 12th. Yards per carry, he was 7th. Points per carry, 12th. Fumbles per game, 10th. Johnny Unitas coming in at number 9 overall in game-changing plays. Number 8 is John Elway. 30-plus yard touchdown percentage of 13 out of 16. Go-ahead touchdown percentage, 16 out of 16. That was his lowest score there. Game-time touchdown percentage, he was tied for 8th. Yards per carry, he was 6th out of the GOAT group. Points per carry, he was 8th. And fumbles per game, he was 15th. So he had the second highest rate of fumbles among the 16 quarterbacks, but still ranking 8th out of 16 in game-changing plays. Moving on to number 7 in game-changing plays is Joe Montana. So 30-plus yard touchdown percentage for Joe was 7th out of 16 GOAT group quarterbacks. Go-ahead touchdown percentage, he was 5th. Game-time touchdown percentage, he was 12th. Yards per carry, he was 8th. Points per carry, he was 8th. And fumbles per game, he was number 1. The fewest fumbles per game of any of the 16 GOAT group quarterbacks. That's Joe Montana coming in at number 7 in game-changing plays. Moving on to number 6 in game-changing plays is Aaron Rodgers. So Rodgers, in terms of 30-plus yard touchdown percentage, he's 10th. Go-ahead touchdown percentage, 2nd. Game-time touchdown percentage, 3rd. Yards per carry, he's 5th. Points per carry, 6th. Fumbles per game, 5th. So excellent ball security. He gets and runs. He throws. heck of a player, obviously, making a lot happen in terms of momentum plays throughout his career and probably will continue to do so this upcoming season. That's Aaron Rodgers at number 6. So moving on to number 5 in game-changing plays is Roger Staubach. So Staubach ranked 5th in 30-plus yard touchdown percentage. Go-ahead touchdown percentage, he was 13th out of 16. Game-tying touchdown percentage, he was 6th out of 16. Yards per carry, he was 2nd among the GOAT group. Points per carry, he was 7th. Fumbles per game, he was 8th. So highly mobile. They didn't call him Roger the Dodger for no reason. You know, he had the 2nd highest yards per carry of any of the GOAT group quarterbacks there. Roger Staubach coming in at number 5 in game-changing plays. Moving forward on to number 4 in game-changing plays, we have Otto Graham. 30-plus yard touchdown percentage, he was 1st among all GOAT group quarterbacks. Pretty impressive there considering the time he played in. Go-ahead touchdown percentage, he was 3rd. Game-tying touchdown percentage, he was 4th. Yards per carry, he was surprisingly 10th. Most quarterbacks during that time were highly mobile, but Otto Graham did hang in the pocket pretty much most of the time there. Points per carry, number 1. So there's that, quarterback sneak, short runs for touchdowns. That's where Otto Graham came in points per carry. Fumbles per game, he ranked number 11th. And again, that's Otto Graham, number 4 in game-changing plays among our 16 GOAT group quarterbacks. Moving on to number 3, we have Bart Starr. 30-plus yard touchdown percentage, he ranked 4th out of 16. Go-ahead touchdown percentage, he was 11th. Game-tying touchdown percentage, he was 12th. Yards per carry, he was number 3. Points per carry, also number 3. And fumbles per game, number 3. So highly mobile and excellent ball security. Bart Starr, number 3 in game-changing plays. And number 2 in game-changing plays, Terry Bradshaw. So Bradshaw came out with ranking 7th in 30-plus yard touchdown percentage out of the 16 GOAT group quarterbacks. Go-ahead touchdown percentage, he ranked 4th. Game-time touchdown percentage, 16th. Yards per carry, he ranked 4th. Points per carry, he ranked 2nd. And fumbles per game, he was 12th. So again, Bradshaw, another mobile quarterback working his way up the rankings here in game-changing plays. Terry Bradshaw coming in at number 2. And that brings us finally to number 1 in game-changing plays among the GOAT group quarterbacks, Steve Young. So Steve Young's 30-plus yard touchdown percentage throughout his career, that's all the 30-plus yard touchdowns divided by his total number of passing attempts during his career. He ranked 6th in the GOAT group, 1.52%. His go-ahead touchdown percentage during his career was 1.81%. That's 7th in the GOAT group. His game-tying touchdown percentage was 0.43%. That's 7th. Okay. Steve Young's yards per carry during his career, 5.9. That's number 1 among the 16 GOAT group quarterbacks. Points per carry during his career was 0.357. That doesn't sound like much, but I mean, that's number 4 in the GOAT group. That's pretty high for a quarterback, especially one that runs as often as he does. Typically the higher points per carry, spoiler alert here, tend to favor the quarterbacks that actually don't run as often, and so the majority of their runs might be 1-yard quarterback sneaks at the goal line. For Steve Young to have points per carry that high for the number of carries he had during his career is really impressive. And then what's even more impressive, fumbles per game, he was 6th in the GOAT group. So, I mean, he wasn't the most ball security. That went to his teammate for a time, Joe Montana. He didn't have the best ball security comparatively there, but carrying the ball as often as he did, running as effectively as he did, and yet he still averaged less than half a fumble a game. Okay, so really impressive in terms of momentum-changing plays, game-changing plays. That's Steve Young, in a nutshell there. Striking terror in the hearts of defensive coordinators around the league, something like that. So Steve Young came in at number 1 in game-changing plays. So again, I'll kind of recap this. Feel free to check in on all of these. Each player has an associated kind of graphic with them on Instagram at Pro Football Perspective, where you can see the exact statistical figure for each category and where they ranked among the 16 GOAT Group quarterbacks. Recapping here in game-changing plays, we had Kurt Warner at 16, Sammy Baugh at 15, Dan Marino at 14, Tom Brady at 13, Brett Favre at 12, Peyton Manning at 11, Drew Brees at 10, Johnny Unitas at 9, John Elway at 8, Joe Montana at 7, Aaron Rodgers at 6, Roger Staubach at 5th, Otto Graham at 4th, and then Bart Starr at number 3, Terry Bradshaw at number 2, and then Steve Young with essentially the most impact or game-changing or momentum-swinging, whatever you want to call it, the high-leverage plays out of any of the 16 GOAT Group quarterbacks. So Steve Young with high marks there. We'll see how that kind of shakes out here. We have 2 more categories to evaluate before we crown the true GOAT. Those are coming very shortly. I know the regular season is right around the corner here, and we will wrap this up before that begins. So be on the lookout coming up here. We'll kind of get through the rest of those categories soon. Thanks again for joining Pro Football Perspective. Be on the lookout for clutch results and playoff performance as our final 2 metrics in the GOAT Group quarterback evaluation. Again, Pro Football Perspective is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, and YouTube. Be sure to follow along on Instagram at Pro Football Perspective. I'm Nathaniel Bradley. Deuces.